It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. You may have noticed that last week I wasn't here. Last week we ran best ofs of the News Blitz. I put it together a very long time ago, so I don't even remember what aired, but I handpicked it, so I bet it was fine. And the reason I wasn't here was because I was on vacation to celebrate my 40th birthday. I've been in this business almost 20 years and I just turned 40, so I'm doing great. Now, about a year ago, I actually took calls on this very radio show trying to figure out what I should do for my 40th birthday, and I had a lot of great suggestions, a lot of talk about Europe, and originally that was the plan because I've never been to Europe. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized, wait a second, my birthday's in August. Isn't August the worst time to go to Europe? With the hot weather and the expensive travel, because that's when everybody goes. So we decided, you know what, maybe we save Europe for another time. We're actually right now looking into if it works. Because I will be dark the last 2 weeks of the year. My wife will be dark the last 2 weeks of the year. That means nobody's working. What if we just wait and see if any last-minute travel deals pop up? I have all the sites ready to go. I've got the alerts on my phone. And if there's some business class ticket with a reasonable amount of points, we'll go wherever. And then we'll go to a couple different countries and see what Christmas markets are all about. So that is our possible plan to get to Europe this year. But it just didn't make sense to go in the summer. Then earlier this year, the thought was, well, I do really like exploring somewhere new. And we haven't done a whole lot of that this year. Last year was the first time that we went to Carmel and fell in love with Carmel by the Sea, one of the most beautiful places in the state of California. Had a great time exploring San Francisco as well. And there was a thought of, okay, where would be somewhere where the weather would be good in August, where there's lots of stuff to do outdoors, which is very important for me because I love walking around outdoors. I love not having to drive all the time. Maybe it's because I'm born and raised in car hell, Los Angeles, but my dream vacation is one where I don't drive. And so we started thinking about going to Vancouver and explore. I've never been to Canada. Vancouver's a 3-hour flight from Los Angeles. It looked beautiful. We started watching videos. I started watching videos on the other city that's close by there, Victoria. And that was the idea. But the more we thought about that, we started looking at how much that was costing because that's a very popular place in August. And how much the flights were going to be, how much the lodging was going to be. Turned out that the week of my birthday, my wife wasn't able to get off. So does it really make sense to go on a whole vacation like that if she's got to work half the time? So then it was like, well, you know, ultimately, what is the thing that makes me happy? What do I want to do? How do I want to celebrate my 40th birthday? And then it was an aha moment, and I think you know where I'm going with this. It was time to go back to Santa Fe. And I've already been to Santa Fe several times this year. We went 5 times last year. I think we'll be going 5 times this year, but I went for a week in May, and I went for a week in July. But I was working those weeks. I would take one day off here or there if there was a holiday, but other than that, I was working most of the time. I was still enjoying it, but it had been quite a while since I did a week off, no having to think about work, which is a two-pronged thing for me because I love what I do for a living, but part of what I do for a living is I have to be plugged in to what's going on locally, statewide, and nationally. I have to know what's going on in the news. So even when I'm going on hikes and walking around the beautiful scenery of New Mexico, I've got my glasses playing YouTube videos of crime blotter stories going on in Los Angeles. And part of what I wanted, since I have the days to take off, was a week where I didn't have to think about any of that. I could just focus on the beautiful weather up there, the beautiful scenery, the food, the drinks, and of course the family. Because it turned out that it kind of worked out that my wife's whole family came out there for the entire week. And I'm a big fan of that whole crew, especially the newest members of that family, my 3-year-old niece, who I have gotten to know very well over the last couple of years, and now my 5-month-old niece, who I got to bond with a lot on this trip. So that was all very exciting. And it was like, that does sound like the perfect vacation. Plus, for us, the flights are cheap because we can pay for them all on points, and the lodging is free. And, you know, it's a time where everyone is kind of uncertain about like what's going on. Is it really the smartest time to be spending, you know, thousands of dollars on a vacation? So this seemed like what made the most sense for us. There's so many things that I could do in Santa Fe that would make me happy, that would make me feel accomplished and pampered and all the things you want to feel on a 40th birthday. So we set the plan and we didn't look back. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. Now, let me tell you, this is how obsessed we are with Santa Fe. There's a restaurant. It might be my favorite restaurant in the entire world, with the caveat that I have not explored the whole world. But when we plan our trips to Santa Fe, when we're trying to figure out which days to fly in, which days to fly out, there's one thing that comes into consideration before anything else, and it's the Shed. The Shed is my favorite restaurant that I've ever been to, and I will go 100 more times probably in the next couple of years. I love it. It is the most authentic New Mexican enchiladas, green chilies, red chilies, incredible fresh lime juice made margaritas, and the price points are insane. A plate of enchiladas at lunch is $10 or $11. The spicy margarita is $10.75, and I just love that. Now, it's a very popular place. It's right in the center of the downtown plaza, and it can get very, very busy, which is very intimidating for people, but we know how to get in. But we'll get into that in just a minute. Why do we plan our trips around the Shed, you ask? Well, because they're closed on Sundays, as many restaurants are in Santa Fe. And so one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we do every time we're planning a trip to Santa Fe is make sure that we're flying in at a time where we can get our Saturday Shed on. Because you got to get there on Saturday. You're not going to be able to get there on Sunday. And some people have to work on Monday, which means you can go, but you're probably not going to have margaritas at lunch. So we actually modified our flight that we had booked months ago. Originally, we had booked a flight from Burbank Airport to Albuquerque, which Southwest has a direct flight once a day. But that flight was going to get us into Albuquerque at like 5 o'clock. And then between getting the rental car and driving up I-25 to get to Santa Fe, it was going to take, we were going to get up there late, and then we got to deal with unpacking and everything. It was like that almost loses all of Saturday. So I did something that some may consider sacrilege, but we actually moved our flight out of Burbank to LAX to Albuquerque because that flight was at 7 a.m., which meant that if we got up early and took our Lyft over to LAX, we'd be done with all the Albuquerque rental car, be into town by like noon. And that meant we could get into the shed for lunch, maybe even dinner too. And I know that seems crazy. Why would anyone pick LAX over Burbank? Let me tell you, LAX is terrible. I'm well aware of how awful it is. But LAX on a Saturday morning isn't bad, especially if you're willing to wake up at 5 a.m. Not terrible. It worked out. This was also, I believe, our last Southwest flight for the foreseeable future. See, Southwest changed their business model recently, got rid of the open seating, which isn't that big of a deal. But they also got rid of free bags, which irked me quite a bit because that was their whole selling point. And then they also devalued their points significantly. So now that they're just like every other airline, except the points are even more devalued, for our future Santa Fe trips, we're actually going to be flying American. Because, pro tip, and I'm going to start putting this out there, I wish I was getting paid for this because I tell everybody about it. But there has not been a direct flight between Los Angeles and the Santa Fe Regional Airport in years. But it's coming back this October. In fact, I booked the inaugural flight. And it's LAX, which, it's fine. But it gets you into Santa Fe Airport instead of having to be an hour away in Albuquerque. So that's important. Again, we're trying to make sure we get into town as early as we can on a Saturday so we can get to the shed before lunch ends at 2:30. Well, what do you know? We get into town, we unpack, we see everyone there. At this point, my wife's entire family is there, which is my wife's parents, her sister and brother-in-law, her brother and sister-in-law, and the two kids, as well as her two cousins from North Carolina that were visiting. It was a full house. And as soon as we get there, we drop the bag, say hi to everybody, and then walk to the plaza. See, I'm very, very blessed in that my in-laws' house in Santa Fe is less than a mile walk to the downtown plaza. So you really don't have to do any driving whatsoever. So let's go back to the Shed, which is my favorite restaurant, which has the incredible Chili's. It gets very busy, unless you're not afraid of that and you know what to do. If you put your name in early enough, you'll get in. They do take dinner reservations up to 3 months in advance, but those fill up very quickly. But they open the wait list for dinner every day at 4 o'clock. So if you show up at like 3:45 and wait, and you're the first person they talk to, they'll get you a table. And if you want to go there for lunch, if you go there right at 10:30, they open at 11, you'll get seated right away. If you want to eat around noon or 1, might be tough. You might have to wait a while. You get there around 1:30, they'll tell you, it might be an hour, but it's usually less than that. So what we do is we put our name in. We were going to seat for 5 of us because it was going to be my wife and I, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and the 3-year-old and the baby. And we're like, it's going to be an hour wait. But you know what's great? Okay, fine, it's an hour wait. We'll go walk around in this perfect weather because while it was 100+ degrees in Los Angeles, it was 85 and sunny and beautiful in Santa Fe. And my rule for Santa Fe, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. If you've got your water with you and you've got a hat, you can walk around all day. If you're bundled up enough, you can walk around in December as long as it's not actively snowing. But we've been very lucky with that. So we walk around, and this started one of the very fun things that we got to do, which was, I love just walking around by myself, but walking around with the 3-year-old niece is getting to be a lot more fun the older she gets because she wanted to go statue hunting. And there is so much just beautiful art everywhere in Santa Fe. It's a big artist town, but there's also sculptures and statues around everywhere in front of businesses. So we're just like, okay, we're going to take the 3-year-old and we'll let you know when the table's ready. And we just wandered around and got all the statues. And what do you know? Eventually, I get the text message because now it's the future and every restaurant will just get your number and you don't have to sit there and wait. They'll text you when the table's ready. And I got my margarita, I got my enchiladas, and everything was perfection. For dinner that night, since we had a big group, we were trying to figure out an easy place to get into. We loaded up as many cars and went to the Rail Yard District, which is the cooler happening part of Santa Fe. They put on a lot of free concerts in the summertime, but there was no concert that night, so we thought we could get in easily to the 2nd Street Brewery at the Rail Yard. This place is great. This place does something that most breweries don't do, but it's very appreciative if you happen to have someone in your family that can't handle gluten. They do a process called gluten removed beer, which means for the first time in many years, my wife can actually have a beer, which is very exciting. And the beer is delicious. They have a great IPA. They have a great cream stout. And they also, and this is how we discovered it, because my brother-in-law is not really a drinker, but they found out that this is one of the best green chili cheeseburgers in Santa Fe. The Alien Burger. Oh my goodness. The Alien Burger is incredibly decadent. Now, I'll be honest, my wife and I are kind of on a diet plan right now, and we're supposed to be intermittent fasting and not eating crazy food, but I told the doctor that I'm doing this with that, hey, this vacation was planned, we're going to have to do it. But we were responsible, and we split an Alien Burger, which is a 3rd-pound cheeseburger with green chilies and a cheese-filled chile relleno and guac and bacon and tater tots on the side. It is... There are a lot of places that claim they have the best green chili cheeseburger, and I haven't had a bad green chili cheeseburger in New Mexico, but that one is really special, especially if you pair it with a nice beer. So that was a ton of fun, and that was just day one. And I was there for a whole week, and I'm going to tell you about the things that I did there, the things that I had fun doing, and how I spent my actual 40th birthday, because it was pretty perfect in my book. So if you've never been to New Mexico, you've never been to Santa Fe, I'm going to tell you a little bit what it's like because I'm obsessed with it and I tell everybody about it. So of course I've got to do a show on it. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. I decided I wanted to take today to share with you my incredible birthday week last week in Santa Fe because I can't shut up about it. I had such a good time. The whole family was there. I ate like a king. I drank like a fish, and I walked. There were 2 different days I walked over 10 miles. I love it. It's the best. In fact, on Sunday, the day after we arrived, we took my wife's cousins who came in from North Carolina to visit. Hadn't seen them since my wife's 40th birthday 3 years ago. And we showed them our favorite walk, which is you go downtown and then you walk up this trail called the Cross of the Martyrs. It's you go up an elevation and you're already at 7,000 feet. And there's all these little plaques that tell you the history of Santa Fe, which is kind of a bloody history if you go back to the Spanish conquest when this thing was first discovered. It's the oldest state capital, and there's a lot of interesting history there. But you go up to the very top, you get this scenic view of the entire city and the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and then a local bartender at Joe's Tequila Bar, which we'll talk about later, last year taught me that, once you go do that trail, there's actually a secret path that only the locals know about called the Artist Road Trail, and you can walk uphill for yet another mile on a beautiful secluded path that's away from the car traffic, and love getting to show my relatives that. And then the coolest thing, my cousins are like, hey, we found on TikTok that there is this coffee place that we got to check out. And so we walked back into town down to the south of Capitol area near the rail yard where they found a coffee shop called Crash Murder Business. Santa Fe's a little weird, and I love that about it. And this place had incredible glitter coffee. Now, I'm not a regular coffee drinker, but I do enjoy the taste of it, even though I don't drink caffeine anymore. And let me tell you, this place had the best decaf Americano I've ever had. I asked, how did you do it? They're like, well, we figured since it's decaf, we should really try hard. And it was fantastic. I got a lot more to talk about with my week in Santa Fe as I celebrated my 40th birthday. But first, 790 KABC welcomes Shucked, the Tony Award-winning musical comedy, the comedy about corn. I'm going to see it next week. It's playing at the Hollywood Pantages Theater August 19th through September 7th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show on August 28th. Tickets furnished by the Hollywood Pantages Theater. Good luck dialing. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. I am letting everyone know what I did last week when I spent my 40th birthday week in Santa Fe, New Mexico, my favorite place, the place I dreamed to move to one day, and the place where all my favorite food and drinks are. On the Sunday that we were there, for lunch, we went to my favorite bar in Santa Fe. My favorite restaurant's The Shed. My favorite bar is at the Inn and Spa on Alameda, right there as you get into town on Alameda and Paseo de Peralta. It is called Joe's Tequila Bar, and it is the place that taught me about añejo. And you know that I've become quite a fancy tequila drinker. We had been teasing to the bar manager there, David, for a while that we were going to come and shut the place down on my 40th birthday. And I'm so glad that we came on Sunday to say hi to David and get a little drink while we had lunch there. And David was like, "Oh, your birthday's on Tuesday? Come Wednesday. I'm not working on Tuesday." So I'm glad we got that out of the way. That night, we had a big family dinner at the house. My wife's family is very into Spanish food, so we kind of did a tapas night, and everyone contributed something. It was a lot of fun. On Monday morning, my wife and I decided it was time to give the dogs a nice walk. But the thing is, 3-year-old niece, she'll come up to us in the morning. She's like, "Can we go walk the dogs?" And it's the cutest thing in the world. And I'm like, of course we can. And now she's old enough where like she can hold the leash and she's actually holding the leash. So we take her on a beautiful Monday morning walk to Canyon Road, which none of these galleries are open, but there's tons of sculptures to look at, which again is her favorite thing. So we did that, walked the dogs around, walked her around, pointed out all the cool sculptures that are on Canyon Road and all the art. That day, my wife had to work, so I was set free to just walk all over. I walked 10 miles that day. I just kept walking. And usually I'll listen to podcasts or listen to show prep. I was like, I'm just going to listen to the SiriusXM Chill channel because I'm in a chill out mood, and it felt great. I went on a massive uphill walk, further than I've ever gone before. Felt like I conquered the whole city. And at that point, my wife was like, "Hey, I think I got an hour for lunch. Can we go try to get into Pasquale's?" Okay, this is the legendary breakfast place, and there are many legendary breakfast places in Santa Fe, but you can also go there for lunch. Cafe Pasquale's on Water and Don Gaspar near the St. Francis Hotel. This was the place that got my father-in-law obsessed with Santa Fe over 30 years ago. This place, everything is farm to table. Everything is perfection. It's pretty darn good. My wife went for the breakfast quesadillas with salsa. I decided for the first time ever there, usually what I get is their big chorizo burrito, Christmas style, which means red chili and green chili, full of chorizo and potatoes. And then I remembered I'm supposed to be on a diet. So like, okay, what can be something a little cleaner than that? Well, how about the vegetable enchiladas with Pasquale's red chili, which is legendary. It was really, really, really great. And then that night for dinner, the people with the kids decided they were going to go for burgers. My wife wanted to have enchiladas. So I walked them around, hung out with them till my wife was done with work. And then we got into the Shed and I tried their pollo adobo, because you ever get to a point where you have a favorite restaurant and it's like, well, I need to try everything on the menu. That was like the one thing I hadn't tried on the menu. But that was Monday. Tuesday, August 5th, 2025 was my 40th birthday, and it started with the most exquisite thing I think you can do in Santa Fe. Santa Fe has a small town feel, but has the amenities of a 5-star city. And the hotels are incredible. But if you go just a little up the road, past where the main downtown center is, there is a place called 10,000 Waves. 10,000 Waves is my favorite spa. 10,000 Waves is the place you go to when you and your significant other want to feel pampered and fancy. Now, it gets very busy there, but let me give you a little hint. The appointments that you can book for not only the private hot tubs, but the massages open up 45 days in advance. So if you're thinking of going, you can also book rooms there, but we're literally 5 minutes down the road, so I don't think we'll ever do that. But we booked a 9 a.m. private soaking tub, and it is... We picked the Shoji, and this is like the most authentic Japanese-looking spa you will ever see. I've never been to Japan, but my sister-in-law lived in Japan for a year. She loves 10,000 Waves and says it feels very, very authentic. You get an hour and a half to not only soak in the hot tub, and I was smart enough to pick the one that had a little shade because it is summertime, but the weather was perfect. And you don't just do the hot tub. That would get boring, even though it's relaxing. What you do is, and my wife and I would really compete with each other with this, is while you're in the hot tub, there's a cold plunge right next to it. And the cold plunge is cold. And the whole thing is to see how brave you can be, how deep you can get in the cold plunge, and how long you can sit in that cold plunge. It's very good for your skin. It's very good for everything, especially if you've got any injuries, like any knee injuries. Going from hot tub to cold plunge is so good for you. They've also got a sauna in there. So there's a lot of rotating of that. I think when we were almost done, my wife had been able to sit in that cold plunge for 3 to 4 minutes. I did it for about 3 minutes, and the trick was try to just hum a song to yourself. But it feels really good, especially when you get back in the hot tub after you've been in the cold plunge. You feel all these, I can only explain it as tinglies, but it's really, really good. They also have, if you just book a spa service, they have a grand bath, but there's something special about having your own private tub. It's very nice. And then as soon as that appointment was over, we had our appointments for birthday massages. Now, my wife's birthday is 6 days before mine, so technically we were both celebrating. But I have gotten several massages in my life, and most of them have been at 10,000 Waves. And they're not cheap, but they're definitely worth it. You get 80 minutes in a beautiful private room where you have some of the best masseuses in the world that work there, and you just melt into that table. And what better way to start a birthday? Then we had a very light lunch because we had a very early but very heavy dinner planned, but we had a little time to kill, so I was like, okay, who wants to go get a couple of drinks at Joe's before dinner? Because dinner was going to be at like 5:30. So decided to have some tequila and have a little nachos before finally I was able to, and this is something we booked well in advance, but I mentioned how hard it can be to get into the shed. We knew we were going to spend my birthday. We didn't know who was going to come, if anyone was going to come. So I just, back in May, was like, hey, can I get a reservation for 8 people? And they're like, sure. How about at 5:30? That's perfect. My brother-in-law with the 2 kids, that's the best time to eat for them. So we got the whole family in there. We actually had to modify it because I didn't know how many people were coming, and we had to bring the 2 kids. And they were plenty happy to accommodate. I got to sit around with the whole family, having my favorite enchiladas, having my favorite margaritas, having the whole family sing happy birthday, and got to, play with my one niece, got to hold my other niece. Couldn't think of anything more perfect. Oh, I got to tell you this. As we're driving back from 10,000 Waves to get back to the house, my wife's on the phone with FedEx, and she's very upset because FedEx was supposed to deliver something to the house, but they didn't. They left a note, even though the door was open, and they could have just dropped it off there. And she was very upset. So she drove us to the FedEx location, and the package wasn't there, and she was very upset. And then she said, you need to deliver this now. It's a birthday present. I'm like, oh, I know what this is. Well, I guess she got through to him because the FedEx guy showed up and dropped off the birthday present she got for me, an extremely difficult to find bottle of tequila. G4, which G4, you can see the repo at a lot of places, and they have a reserve repo. She found the G4 Añejo, and it was delicious, and we got to enjoy that all week. So yeah, I had a pretty perfect birthday, but it doesn't end there because the next night is when we got to close down the tequila bar. I'm going to keep telling you about all the incredible things that I did on my wonderful week off in Santa Fe, New Mexico. If you've never been, I'm not getting paid to tell you about this. I just think it's a beautiful place and it's not that far away. It's a 2-hour flight to get to Albuquerque, or it's a 12-hour drive. Stop in Flagstaff. Don't do the whole 12 hours. But I got a lot more to tell you here, so stick around. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. I'm telling you about my wonderful 40th birthday week in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The day after my birthday was another day where I got to walk 10 miles, and then I was hanging out at the house. My 3-year-old niece woke up from a nap. She wanted to walk around, so I decided, hey, why don't we go wander around town and see if we can find some more statues? Found tons of them, including this giant bear statue that she was obsessed with. And we're wandering around town. We stop at the Inn and Spot Loretto because they have free orange-infused water that you can sit in the lobby and enjoy. And she remembered that. And she's like, I want the orange water. And then it was like, it's time for a snack. Where can we get a snack? And I just happened to look up, okay, what's around here? Right around the corner was a place I'd never heard of called Churro Bar. And what do you know? It's perfectly placed right next to a pot shop. But we walk into Churro Bar, and I got to experience watching my 3-year-old niece learn what a churro was and become obsessed with dipping it in chocolate. She loved it. And we were playing a real dangerous game because she was wearing a white dress and somehow no chocolate got on it. That night, it was time. I was getting ready to go to Joe's Tequila Bar to meet David, where I was going to get my magical birthday tequila tasting. My father-in-law's like, what are y'all doing tonight? I'm like, oh, we're doing a special tequila tasting at Joe's. And he's like, can I get in on that? I'm like, of course. So my father-in-law joined, my sister-in-law joined, even though she doesn't drink, but we hung out. I love their nachos. So that was my day after birthday dinner. And then David came to the table, even though it was a very busy night, and it's like, okay, here's what I've got for you to try on your birthday. Something from every possible aspect of tequila. We tried a Fontainseca Coseca Blanco, Fortaleza Reposado, which is a very difficult to get bottle. The winner of all of them was, I never had this bottle before, and the next time I get out to Total Wine, I'm going to see if I can buy one. Tequila Comos Añejo. This thing tasted like hazelnut, additive-free. It was incredible. And then the extra añejo was a Herradura Selección Suprema, and it was perfect. But then it was like, can we get one more flight? And this time, David and Marina, the other bartender, they were like, okay, let's get you some of your favorites because we've been here so many times over the years. So we had the Cazacanes Rosé Blanco, the Mijenta Reposado, the Flecha Azul Añejo, which I may have had like the first time I ever had Añejo, and I loved it. And that gold, beautiful bottle, the one that I got for my wife for her birthday, La Gran Señora Extra Añejo. And it was an incredible tasting, sat there for hours. We kind of had our own private room, even though we didn't ask for one. And you get so well taken care of there. And then my incredibly generous father-in-law picked up the check, which he did not need to because he didn't drink all that tequila. I did. But I'm very lucky. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. I'm telling everyone about my wonderful birthday week in Santa Fe. On Thursday, it was babysitting day. We always love to give the two people who had children in the family a break and like, we'll watch the kids, you go enjoy yourself. I took my 3-year-old niece to the International Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe, which is one of the coolest museums I've ever been to, and she loved it. There's this giant room with all these toys and dolls from all around the world from hundreds of years ago. She was fascinated by everything. It was a lot of fun. That night, my wife and I watched the kids while my brother-in-law and sister-in-law went for their fancy dinner at Izaname, the restaurant at 10,000 Waves, one of the best Japanese restaurants in the country. You have to go there sometime. Fun thing. I found out through Instagram that this bakery I follow, it's a gluten-free bakery in Santa Fe called Revolution Bakery. They had an Italian sandwich, and it was like, that looks so good. So we went on Thursday to try to get them, and they're like, oh, we're sold out. When do you have to be here to get one? 9 a.m. So Friday morning at 9 a.m., we got them, had them for lunch. They were amazing. And that night, we got a reservation into what is now the hottest restaurant in Santa Fe, the Market Steer Steakhouse. It just won all these awards for best in Santa Fe. We've been there many times. It's so good. They have this appetizer called the bone marrow, where it's bone marrow over garlic bread topped with giardiniera. And then when you finish it, you get to do a luge. What does that mean? It means they strap a bib around you and they pour whatever liquor you want down your gullet through the bone. And I picked a very fancy bottle of Añejo, and it was incredible. We got 2 steaks. She got the flat iron. I got the New Mexico cut, which was a Wagyu ribeye. Got it with their sauce flight with 8 different incredible sauces. Paired that with a beautiful Cab Franc blend. It was so great. And there were so many other things. The day after that, most of my wife's family left. And then my brother, who was on a road trip, stopped in Santa Fe. I introduced him to all the food, took him to the shed, took him on walks. It was a magical week, and I can't wait to go back, but not for a couple months. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble on about one of my favorite places. Hey, if you've never been and you ever want to go, email me. I'll tell you all the places to go to. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.